What's up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here, bringing you all of the trucks that we just saw from Detroit. So the North American International Auto Show, or NAIAS, took place. It started over the weekend. I believe that they are wrapping everything up now, but most of the big launches there were over the weekend, and we have several new trucks to talk about, the first of which is the 2019 Silverado.
Right, so the 2019 Silverado is all new for this year. It's a complete redesign. We're getting a slew of new interior things. Exterior looks completely different. It's just a brand new truck. And we do have some differing opinions on it. Some people think it's an amazing new body style and look to it, and we're kind of mixed on the two. Like, we like things about it, but there are certain things that we don't like about it.
Right, and if you've seen the new 2016 and 2017 Tahoes and Suburbans, personally I think they look a lot like that, at least from the exterior and really the interior as well, but they are more angular. We're losing some of the big boxiness and of old school design, and they are going for more of a modern design. But with this new Silverado, we're looking at 8 new trim levels, ranging from the work truck all the way up to the high country, and a lot of these trim levels are still the same from previous years, but now the trims will be including the custom trim, similar to the custom trims of 20 or 30 years ago. But basically what that allows you to do is get a pretty basic interior truck and a lot cheaper price tag of a truck, but still have a pretty nice look to it, with body match appointments and everything else, instead of having black plastic or anything like that. A lot of the higher end trucks do use more chrome. As you may know, we're not really fans of chrome, but one good thing about the custom is you can get a custom Trail Boss, which is that upgraded Z71 truck there with the 2-inch lift, or you can get the LT Trail Boss, or I'm sure they'll have several different ways for you to get that trim level, since they're definitely pushing that because it is such a head turner. But the work truck there starts with a 7-inch touchscreen. Obviously it gets up from there as you get more and more expensive. You can add navigation. Obviously Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are very popular here in the GM vehicles, and there's 3 new engine choices that we're going to see here with this truck.
So starting off with some different powertrains that are going to be available in this new Chevrolet truck. There are 3 of them, and we're going to talk about the gas ones first. So we are still going to have the 5.3 V8 and the 6.2 V8, but they do come with a different bit of updates to them. So one of the ones that is kind of what stood out to me was that now you have cylinder deactivation with up to 7 cylinders. So that means 7 out of those 8 cylinders will not be receiving any sort of fuel or anything like that. They'll be shut off, and you'll have 1 cylinder powering the entire vehicle. Now, we're not sure exactly how much efficiency gain is in this. They didn't exactly say, other than obviously you're going to be saving a little bit on fuel, and chances are this is going to be activated when you're going like on very, very flat grades, and especially downhill.
Right, and probably this won't even occur, and I'm personally thinking that GM is doing this heavy cylinder deactivation instead of doing complete start-stop feature, where you would go to a stoplight, the whole vehicle would shut off, and then when the stoplight turns green, you hit the gas and you go again. I think since that is kind of a frustrating feature for a lot of people, because there is a little bit of a delay there, you do feel it and everything else, I think they're probably just trying to keep that motor working with as little fuel as possible, so then when you do have to step on it, they just have to up the fuel, and then you'll be able to take off. But probably the most talked about and most anticipated engine option here is a new Duramax for the half tons, and they're saying that's a 3-liter inline 6. Now, they didn't say anything more than that, other than it is going to be an inline 6 Duramax. But this is really interesting because, as you all know, Ram had the Eco Diesel, Ford has their new 6-cylinder V6 Power Stroke that'll be going in the 2019 F-150s, and now we're seeing that Chevy is going to join that game as well. Now, they didn't release any power figures, and my guess is that's probably because Ford just released theirs, and they're going to try to tune it ever so slightly just to one-up Ford just a little bit, so they can claim to have the most powerful diesel in a half-ton, but which is, something that all of these automakers are going to do. But that is something that we're going to see. Now, a couple other things that we did see here with the new Silverado is they're using more high-strength steel and actually more aluminum. So they're saying everything with a hinge or anything that swings, so your tailgate, your hood, and your doors are all going to be aluminum. The rest of the truck is going to be steel. And with this new Silverado, they're also going to have a couple more features, like a power tailgate. They're going to have bed storage boxes similar to the Ram boxes, but more on the interior of the bed. And really, they're just upping the storage everywhere, making a more usable truck. But throughout all of this, they're still allowing the truck to stay 450 pounds lighter, which will obviously help the way that truck drives, help fuel economy, and everything else. So hopefully we'll be seeing these trucks out on the streets here before too long.
So the next truck that we are going to be talking about is the 2019 Ford Ranger that they did finally reveal after weeks of seeing different spy shots and them testing it out in Moab. Ford did finally unveil it to us in Detroit, and basically it looks like a miniature F-150. And when you do look around the truck, there are different little bits and pieces, but especially in the rear of the truck, particularly the taillight area, because that does house a lot of the blind spot monitors, different backup sensors, and different things that the F-150 does have with their safety features. And with this Ford Ranger, there are a total of 9 different configurable packages that you can have, but it's all based off of 4 basic ones, which are the XL, XLT, STX, and the Lariat.
Correct. And then from there you can add more packages. You can get a Chrome package or a Sport package, or the FX4 or whatever else. Obviously the most off-road oriented one is that FX4, at least for now. They made no mention of the Ranger Raptor that we've been hearing about. But with all of these, with the FX4 package, they're using a new terrain management system that we haven't seen before. So it's very similar to the multi-terrain select and crawl control that we have in a Tacoma. However, in these trucks, it does change kind of the throttle and the ABS and everything like that, and it will allow for different modes and rock mode, sand mode, whatever else. But one of these modes I found that was interesting was grass, gravel, and snow mode.
Yeah.
So if you need a mode to drive in grass or gravel, you're probably looking at the wrong vehicle. But at least they have something to help you out here. And also their version of crawl control, I don't remember the name of it here, but it's actually adjustable into more speeds. So they're saying you can go up to 20 miles per hour here with their version of crawl control without touching any of the pedals or anything like that. Personally, I think that sounds a little bit scary. I believe crawl control tops out around 5 miles per hour, and if this goes 20, that's pretty fast, especially to be going down any kind of trails or anything else. So I'm not really sure who would use this at that speed, but at least they're offering a package similar to that. But overall, all these trucks, no matter how you get it with trim or options or whatever else, they're only going to have one engine option. And Ford is saying that is because they found the end-all solution for engines, and that this is going to be the best engine for whatever you want to do. And that engine is going to be the 2.3 liter EcoBoost inline 4 that we've seen in several other vehicles. The Mustang had it, I believe the Explorer had it, and has it still, and some other things. But in those other applications, it makes around 280 horsepower and 310 foot-pounds of torque, at least there in the Explorer. I think the Mustang has a little bit more power. But we will probably see something roughly like that, and probably similar fuel economy too. But they are keeping the fully boxed frame and everything like that, and they are actually using steel bumpers, which we're really glad to see. And actually, it seems like this truck uses a lot less aluminum than the Ford, than the F-150, which is really interesting.
Right.
So that's pretty much all we know, at least for now. They didn't release any kind of fuel economy or power numbers there for that EcoBoost, but hopefully we'll be seeing more of that here before too long. But this marks the first midsize truck with a turbo 4-cylinder. So we've been talking about the time is probably coming, and this is the first time we've seen it.
So the last and final one that we did see come out at Detroit that we're going to talk about is, of course, the 2019 Ram. Again, this is another truck that was completely redesigned and given different touches for this model year. And one of the things that is pretty interesting is what they used as kind of an inspiration for the different trim levels, and that is a hammer. The design of a hammer and the colors that they showed at this reveal is kind of what their inspiration was for the interior, and kind of some of the reasons that they gave were that there are some different hammers that have different textures, are built differently for different purposes, and that's kind of where they're going with the different trims that they're offering on the Ram. So, you know, a basic hammer might be the example that they would give for the very basic trim level that'll cost the smallest amount, and then you might go up to a specialty hammer for some sort of certain job that it might perform, and that might be the limited grade or whatever. But we just thought it was kind of a, you know, interesting idea, we'll say. It was kind of cheesy, but ultimately it was kind of cool. But one thing that really sets apart the trims in the Ram, it seemed from what they showed at the Detroit Auto Show, is that each trim, there's definitely a step up in each trim, where it doesn't seem that things are so blurred between the two. It's definitely its own defined trim level that comes with its own appointments and materials and everything like that. There are also several different options within these trims. So if you do have the basic trim level, you're going to have, of course, a smaller screen, less options, but then when you step up, you do get bigger screens. You can eventually get that 8.4-inch Uconnect system, and then a new system that they unveiled, which kind of looks Tesla-like, honestly, is a 12-inch Uconnect screen right in the middle, and it really does look like a tablet just sitting there right in the middle. But this new Ram really is more luxurious and modernized with this model year, and I'm really impressed with where they went with it.
Right, and one other thing to really step apart all of those different trim levels is each trim level seems to have its own hood. So they are keeping the Rebel around for these new generation Ram 1500s, and the hood on the Rebel has all kinds of vents and different things to it, and then when you go into different trim levels, as Chad was saying, you might have some different hood badging, you might have different hood shape, and everything is just really trying to set apart these different trim levels, which is something that you don't normally see. You know, a lot of these trucks do look eerily similar, except some might have black plastic, some might have chrome, but these trucks are very, very different. And one thing that really makes them very different from the rest of the competition is actually with the new Ram 2019 1500 is they only talked about 2 different engine options, and both of those were actually hybrid. So the first one that they talked about was the Pentastar V6, the 3.6 liter, which is the same in a lot of other Jeep products. The other one is the 5.7 liter V8, which again is in a lot of other Chrysler products. And both of those will be receiving the e-torque system, which is the same thing that they're going to be using in the 4-cylinder Jeep Wrangler, the new JL. So what they're saying that does is it is a hybrid system, and basically they're losing the traditional use of a starter. They are still keeping another small starter, but instead of having the normal traditional starter motor, they're actually replacing it with a little bit larger electric motor, and they're having a onboard 48-volt battery system. And they're saying what that'll help do is augment some of the power. Instead of really wringing out either of those gas motors, the electric motor will be able to step in and add a little bit of extra power there, because it is in line with your belts, and it'll help the engine spool up better. And they also said it'll keep the engine from bogging down. So if you're on the highway or something like that and you start going up a hill, they're saying that the electric motor there will be able to augment some of that power. But they're saying with the Pentastar V6, it will be able to augment up to 90 foot-pounds of torque, and there with the V8, you're going to have up to 130 foot-pounds of torque. Now again, this isn't added to the overall top part of the power band. It is going to kind of fill in some of the gaps throughout the power band, but ultimately you are going to receive a little bit more power there and probably a lot better fuel economy. They're saying some claims have said up to a combined of into the 20s in fuel economy, which is really incredible for a normal internal combustion gas motor there, with a little bit of assist there from the battery packs. Now the battery packs are going to live in the back of the cab, kind of under the back seat, against the rear wall there, and they're saying that will kind of be out of the way. It's not like that's going to sacrifice bed space or anything like that. And they're saying that that'll also, you know, keep the center of gravity low and not make it drive too different or anything like that. But ultimately, this is going to still work with their cylinder deactivation there in the V8. It will be able to drop down there into a 4-cylinder mode and then use some of the electric power as well. And also that will kind of use the electric motor as a regenerative type thing during braking or anything else. But it's a really interesting idea. You know, GM a couple years ago had their own version of a hybrid Silverado and a hybrid Tahoe. I believe they were only sold in California, and they never really made it to the East Coast, so we never saw any of them. But they weren't really a mass marketed thing, and they weren't very easy to live with. Ram is saying that this is a great solution, and really no matter what you're doing with your truck, whether you're towing or whatever else, that this is going to help out the overall performance and the fuel economy of your vehicle.
So there are a few other notable things that we did see on the Ram for the 2019 model year that we did kind of want to mention. There are just a few different interesting things. And one of them is that the bed is now an inch or inch and a half deeper.
Inch and a half taller.
Inch and a half taller. And the reason that they gave for that is for aero purposes. So I guess the efficiency of wind going over the vehicle and into the back, whether that goes over the tailgate or it goes down into the bed and kind of swirls like some of the ones in vehicles nowadays do, I'm not sure. But they're saying that it aids in aero and it's ultimately going to benefit the consumer. I don't exactly know what way it's going to benefit the consumer. They say it will, but you know, most consumers are probably not going to notice the fact that the truck is going to be more aerodynamic or be more efficient driving through the wind. Really, we think it's just kind of going to make it more difficult for you to reach down into the bed now that it's an inch and a half taller. But you know, it is what it is, I guess. But was there another thing?
Right, yeah, the power tailgate. Like GM, they're also going to offer a power tailgate here on the new Rams, and that should make it really nice. It should go both up and down, either off the key fob or whether you're holding it. So that is great. It should help some people out, you know, especially some smaller or older people. It could really help out. And the final thing here is, like we talked about, they are going to keep that Ram Rebel around here for the next generation as well. But instead of just only having the air suspension there in those trucks, they're actually going to have a steel coil setup as well, which I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, air suspension does have some positives there. You know, you can't alter the ride height and everything like that, but ultimately it's a little bit less reliable because there are more moving parts. If you are going to use your truck off-road all the time, you probably want the most reliable thing to get you home at the end of the day, and that's really where that steel coil setup will help you out. Also, I'm not sure if you all have seen one, but I saw a Ram Rebel actually over the break when I was home, and it was off along the street, you know, engine off, locked up and everything else, but actually when the vehicle is off, all of the air suspension sags. So it actually, the most off-road worthy Ram 1500 sits only a couple inches off the ground when that air suspension is all the way down, and honestly it looks kind of funny. Obviously once it starts back up, the air compressors start back up and the vehicle rises.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing. But apparently that's not going to be an issue anymore, because at least if you want to option it, and it should be a little bit cheaper to do so as well, you will be able to get that steel coil suspension there as well. So that pretty much wraps up everything we saw at Detroit. Let us know below in the comments what your favorite truck was and how you would spec one out. And thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.